Hello, hi.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. This is something a little bit different from us, but this is incredible. This is so inspiring. Please tell us, introduce yourself to us.
Okay, I'm David Amoroso, and I'm a painter and a photographer. And this is a collection of my work entitled Entre dos Mundos, which means between two worlds. And my goal is to sort of capture a lot of the details of everyday life in the Latino community, as well as maybe what awaits for us afterwards. And the other side of the gallery features a lot of paintings focusing on Dia de los Muertos, which is a very famous celebration in Mexico where those who have passed come back to visit on November 1st every year. And it's really, I like to call it a day of remembrance more than anything. So as you walk through this exhibit, you sort of enjoy all the bright colors of life and daily actions and things you would do, and then you sort of segue into the other side. And that sort of came to me because as a kid, I would always have these weird dreams where I was actually walking around with skeletons in another world, and I wasn't afraid, but I was just walking with them, and I never understood it. And then when I learned more about Dia de los Muertos, it's like, oh, maybe there's a connect there. I don't know.
And when was your trip to Mexico that inspired all of this? When did it take place?
That was back in 1997, so it's been a while. But yeah, I had gone there. I'd been working for a company that had gone out of business. Wasn't my fault. I just figure I'll say that now. But I was, thinking, I'd been with that company for so long and never vacationed. So I just said, heck, bought a ticket and went, and I spent months there just traveling around and seeing the art and meeting people. And I came back, well, I guess I went there as a photographer because that was what I had been doing. But when I came back and looked at my photos, I felt like they didn't capture the energy. I mean, they were beautiful, but they just didn't capture it. And that inspired me to paint.
Was it the first time that you started painting, or were you dabbling with art before?
Um, it's the first time I tried to paint. I mean, I think, in school, the only class I liked was art, but I never gave it a serious thought because I didn't think you could do that and make a living. And so I thought, hey, I'd like to have a roof over my head, so let me get other jobs, So, but after that trip, I did a quick exhibit with some of the paintings I had made, and like three-quarters of them sold on the opening reception, and that inspired me to say, yay, I can paint, right? Or I can do this for a living if I want to, maybe.
That's exciting. And tell us, where do you paint? Do you go to a studio, or is it something that you do at home?
I built a studio in my home. At first I was crammed up in a small little room, which is hard when you've got large paintings. But, eventually I was able to build a studio off the back of my house. And so I work there. And so I can just wake up in the morning. I get up at like 4 or 5 a.m., walk down the stairs, turn on the pot of coffee, get that going, and then I'll paint, for most of the day.
That's really cool. So this exhibit in Manassas, Old Town Manassas, is so beautiful and very inspiring. But did you do any exhibits anywhere else? Can you tell us? And where can we look forward to see more of your work?
Okay. I've exhibited in the DC area in a few different galleries. I have something upcoming in at the end of November at Artists and Makers Studios. It's going to be called Top of the Pops, and it's going to feature a series of portraits of musicians. But I believe it or not, one of the places where I've always kept my work was the first place I ever exhibited it, which was a Salvadoran Mexican restaurant called El Tamarindo in DC. And, after, 20 some odd years, they're like family. So I always keep a handful of paintings there just for fun. And then there's another place in DC called Miss Pixie's, and it's sort of a curated vintage shop. And she's generously allowed me to use one of her walls. And honestly, that store has so much traffic. I know it's not a traditional gallery, but the people go there, to decorate their homes, and they buy a lot of my work there as well. But, I've done work on the West Coast with Chimaya Gallery, and in this area, I've exhibited at NIH. That was I did a portrait of Dr. Fauci, so that was included, and I got to meet him there, so that was pretty cool. But, there's just a lot of other places around DC, and I'm always open to let's just give it a try somewhere new. So as much as I love a great space like this that's so modern and airy, and there's so much room for large paintings, I'm open to just about any space sometimes.
That's really cool. So you're into photography, you're into art, and all of that makes me think about fashion. What is your take on fashion? Does it impact your fashion style?
I would have dressed better if I'd known you were going to ask that question. I feel like, okay, so you tell me, right? No, when I was doing photography, my focus was on fashion, and portraiture. So I really appreciate that. I was fortunate to be able to work on a project in Venezuela where I was able to photograph Christian Lacroix's clothing. And I mean, each piece was just so unique and one of a kind that it certainly opened my eyes a bit more to, that level of fashion. But, fashion is fascinating. I don't know that I'm always representing, but I always appreciate it. As a visual artist, I think that's just something you notice, right?
Yes, good answer.
Okay.
That was
Is that the right answer?
that was this, there's no right or wrong. And our last question is, how can you inspire other artists who are possibly undiscovered? Can you give them any piece of advice from your experience?
I mean, I don't know that I'm discovered yet. So, well, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because I think as with anything we do that's creative, you never really feel like you've arrived anywhere because there's always so much more out there. But I guess my advice for anybody would be, obviously follow your passion, but keep creating and, look for opportunities to get your work out there. Some people are very picky about where they think they can put their work or how much it should sell for. And, I think while you're still building your name and your reputation, I think it's important just to say yes to opportunities. And if you're truly creative, you're going to keep making stuff. So, it's not like one misstep is going to set you back forever. So I think, looking at everything as a possibility, you may go somewhere where nothing sells, and I think having the mindset, well, I did meet people, you talk to people and, create those contacts and stay in touch with people. I mean, I hate to say it's all about networking, but I really think it is. And, being easy to work with helps too, showing up on time, doing what you say you're going to follow up with, just delivering. So that's something that a lot of galleries and people I've worked with have said that they appreciate. So I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah. So every artist, even though creator, has to have a business mind too. That's important.
Yeah, I mean, it is a business. I think many artists have that romantic notion that they'll just create something and then magically, some gallery will come to them or a buyer will come to them. I know that has happened for some, but in general, it's a lot of legwork and a lot of effort. And, the business side of it isn't always pretty, but, I think the better you get at understanding, what sells, what are the price points that capture people's attention. Sometimes some artists sort of have two lines of work, their passion projects, and then maybe some stuff they know is going to sell. So I think that's a good business decision until at least you get to that point where you don't have to do both, maybe.
And how can we find you on the web?
Okay, I guess Instagram is probably the easiest way at Amoroso Art. I'm on Facebook. I've got a website as well. But if you search for David Amoroso Art, all of those will pop up. But Instagram, I think, is probably the best way to reach people these days.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and for all your talent. We really enjoy this gallery thanks to you.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed this, and thank you.